First off, let me introduce myself. So I'm Chris Ludlow. I'm the head of partnerships at Best Practice Network. And yeah, I head up a team who look after our kind of national delivery partner network, who are a group of school-based organizations, whether they're teaching school hubs, multi-academy trusts, or other kind of training organizations working in the education sector. And we work with them to host and deliver and facilitate the various qualifications that we offer here at Best Practice Network. So I oversee that team. I'm joined today by the wonderful Vanessa Sawyer, who I will let introduce herself.
Thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa Sawyer, like Chris said, and I'm the head of primary ITT at Best Practice Network. I'm also flying the flag for secondary ITT today as well.
Very good. And we have with us Beth, who's running the ones and twos. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Bethany Wiltshire. I am the Partnership Success Manager for ITT. So work very closely with both Chris and Vanessa in terms of supporting our school partners in accessing this programme.
Excellent. And Beth will be live on the chat as well, picking up and answering any questions that you have as we go. But also, if you do, I believe you have the function to raise your hands. If so, if you want to ask any questions as we go along, then please do get involved. It's an open forum, so go wild. As for the format for today, so there is a presentation. We will talk you through the teacher apprenticeships, what that looks like, how you can engage in that, and then we will open up the floor then after about 20 minutes or so to do a Q&A. So any questions that you might have, we can pick those up and go through them live. Like I said previously, this event will be recorded and we'll share a recorded version of this with you all as well following the event, and anyone who registered. And without any further ado, I think we'll crack on. Thank you again for coming and giving up a bit of time in the afternoon. So I will start with a little bit of a who are we? Who are Best Practice Network? So I'm hoping many of you will already be familiar with us as an organization. We are an accredited national provider of a number of different programs, training programs, qualifications for the school's workforce and early years workforce as well. So we are an accredited national ITT provider. So we've been relatively new to the game. So we started our delivery last September with a cohort of 65 eager primary ITT participants. And from this September, we're expanding that one out to include secondary and primary SEN as well. So yeah, we've got a bit of experience as an ITT provider. We are also an accredited lead provider for the early career framework and the national professional qualifications as well. So you will get the impression of the journey that a trainee will go through with their career, and we're available to those participants every step of that journey, really. So they can start out with us in the world of ITT, get their initial qualified teacher status, and then we're able to support them on to the early career framework and then into the MPQs if they ultimately want to go into those leadership positions, or some divergent little pathways that are on offer as well as they work their way through. So we think it's a real benefit being a provider of that all those three elements. The DfE coined that as their golden thread of school CPD. The advantage of that is that with our framework design, when we design and deliver the ITT framework, we're able to do it with the next step in mind. We're able to make sure that there isn't that repetition, that you have that nice flow, and able to be that central point for a trainee throughout their professional development journey as well, which I think is really valuable. There's a lot of systems and processes and things like that people can get very comfortable with quite quickly. So being able to kind of be that consistent voice for them is a powerful statement. So yeah, we're very successful in the world of ECF and MPQs, one of just a handful of lead providers for both of those programs. We're also a large apprenticeship provider. So we've been offering apprenticeships for a number of years now. We've supported over 2,000 apprentices, and they are flooding in at the moment. We have lots of apprentices enrolled on training programs with us, not just in the schools world. So in the schools world, we do the teaching assistant level 3 apprenticeship program. We offer the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship. We also offer a couple of apprenticeship routes linked to the national professional qualifications as well. So leaders apprenticeships, which is a nice way of accessing those qualifications, especially when there isn't much scholarship funding kicking around for those. And then probably one of the biggest part of our apprenticeship provision is in the early years sector, where we are deliver the early years level 2, 3, and 5 apprenticeships as well. So very large part of what we do. yeah, very proud of what we're doing in that sector. So, and you can see there we actually won. We're very proud of this. Apprenticeship Provider of the Year, last 2 years in a row as well. So we're thrilled to be able to have that accolade. That second win for 2024 was achieved just a couple of weeks ago now. So yeah, really thrilled to see our hard work kind of reflected in those awards. And Ofsted also think very highly of us as well. So we're Ofsted Outstanding for our early career framework provision. So hopefully that will give you an indication of what our ITT will look like as we move forward. So yeah, that's a bit of background to who we are as an organisation. And then I'm going to give you sort of a top level look at the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship right now before we go into a bit more depth, really. So kind of what is that postgraduate teacher apprenticeship? So the we call it PGTA, another acronym for you to get used to, is a fee-free salaried route for graduates looking to enter the teaching profession. So it sits apart from the traditional fee-funded routes and provides a salary and no training costs for anyone who is looking to become a teacher. So it's a really fantastic offer to bring people into the profession, and we'll talk you through why that is in a bit, and we'll also show you some examples of why that's a fantastic thing from a school's perspective too. So and the advantage of the apprenticeships is that funding and apprenticeships are accessible to all schools, no matter who you are, whether you're an independent school, a state maintained school, part of a local authority, or whether you sit under a multi-academy trust. Yeah, so there we go. So let's move on to our example head teacher here. We're going to call this guy Paul. Paul is hopefully, well, not hopefully, he's reflective of the current situation out there in the education sector at the moment. You will have potentially seen the release that came from the National Foundation for Educational Research, NFER, yesterday or the day before yesterday, their annual labour market report that came out. It's a bit doom and gloom, I'm afraid, for the teaching profession at the moment. So the Department for Education set to miss their secondary recruitment target by 40%. They missed it by 50% last year, set to miss it by 40% this year. So there's just no new teachers coming into that profession, so few, which is a problem. And primary as well, for the first time, they missed by 4% last time, set to miss by 17% at the moment as well. So yeah, it's not looking great. And those targets that they're set to miss by such wide margins have also have been reduced quite significantly. They were cut by 10% as well. So yeah, it's all a bit grim in terms of new teachers coming into the profession, and that's reflected by the sector. So a study that came out showed that nearly 40% of secondary leaders and 30% of primary leaders actually reluctantly appointed teachers to some of their vacant posts who either lacked adequate qualification or performed poorly in the interview process as well. So sort of feels a bit like the sector taking who they can at the moment and jumping on those people that are there. So rather than having that choice and being able to pick the right people, the perfect people for your school, for your setting, there's just far fewer out there at the moment. And that's also not helped by the last April, something like that, there was a reaccreditation of the ITT providers out there, and it led to a significant decrease in the number of actual ITT providers that exist in the market. So there's fewer providers, and quite evidently there are far fewer people coming into the profession. So we kind of need to look at another solution, really. And if you look at that's from a school's perspective, if you then look at it from a trainee's perspective, at the moment you want to enter the profession of teaching, one that doesn't have the greatest press. At the moment, the retention rates are very low. And at the moment, through the traditional routes into teaching, you are being asked to fork out £9,500 in training fees, put yourself into that £9,500 debt while you train to be a teacher and achieve your QTS. You've also got to cover your living costs for that year as well. So, you know, a whole year of living costs is a significant amount of money. So it's a very kind of not a very attractive prospect for people entering that profession. It's not financially viable for a number of people, and that's a real issue. And you can see that reflected in the application numbers that have been coming through in the world of ITT. So there were 12,500 ITT applications last year that were for salaried positions or apprenticeship pathways. And of those, only 8% of places were actually accepted. So we're sort of making a case that maybe there isn't a shortage of teachers, but actually there's a shortage of viable routes for those teachers to enter that profession. And we sort of think that schools and the wider nation, I guess, need to kind of relook at teaching and rethink the way that we're doing teacher recruitment. And we believe that the teacher apprenticeship is actually the answer to that. So here's our model head teacher here. We're going to call her Kay. And in this example, Kay actually recruited an apprentice teacher for one of the vacant posts that she had within her school. She'd been struggling to fill a post, and that vacancy, instead of leaving it out there and not getting any applications or suitable applications coming in for that post, instead she opened up that post to potentially bring in an apprentice teacher to fill that position. And she was able to fill that vacant post with an apprentice teacher. They were able to use their apprenticeship levy to fund the training for that trainee teacher. And they also received a grant. So for certain subjects, there are employer grants available as well, which go directly to schools to cover the salary of those apprentice teachers. So a really attractive prospect there for Kay, who's done very well to fill that post. So we think that this is a model that can be adopted more widely and should be adopted more widely. So that's why we're here talking to you about the apprenticeship levy and sort of telling you what that one looks like in a bit more detail. So we'll kind of work through some of those benefits in a bit more detail. So to start with, if we look at the apprenticeship levy, so that the idea that they've used their apprenticeship levy to fund that training. So all schools can access apprenticeship funding. So apprenticeship funding, there is a levy, just a tax that schools pay into. If you're part of a local authority school, that's paid by the local authority, but kind of taken out of your budgets. If you're part of a multi-academy trust, then likewise there's a percentage taken out of the total money that you'll receive, and that money gets ring-fenced and it has to be spent on apprenticeship programs. And if it's not spent, it gets lost. So there's huge pots of money being sat on by local authorities and multi-academy trust settings that are struggling to find ways to spend that money, and it's sat there and unused. And the teacher apprenticeship spending is an opportunity for you to be able to use some of that funding. So schools are asked to pay for the training costs of the trainee, but it comes out of that pot of money, a ring fence pot of money that is going unused or can't be spent on anything else. If schools do find that they've run out of apprenticeship funding, then there are other avenues in which you can re-top up that pot of money. So there is the co-investment scheme that's offered by the ESFA. So the co-investment scheme, if you happen to have used up your pot of money or you don't even pay into the apprenticeship in the pot in the first place, then through that co-investment scheme, the ESFA will fund 95% of the cost of an apprenticeship program for you, and you would just have to stump up the 5% difference. So a very affordable route there. And there's also the levy transfer scheme. So if you do happen to use up your pot of money, then there are a ton of organizations out there who are willing to donate and give away their unused apprenticeship funds. So you're able to transfer it between organizations, and there are a lot of businesses who, as part of their corporate social responsibility, are more than willing to transfer that across. So apprenticeship funding is available to absolutely everybody, whether you pay that levy or not, and the vast majority of schools will be paying into that levy. And you know, technically it's a bottomless pot of money at the moment as well, because you can access additional funds through various different routes. So that's a wonderful thing. In this example, you know, you take on an apprentice teacher within your school, you do have to pay them a salary. That's done on the unqualified teacher pay scale. So you would pay them a salary of, I think it's 20,500, somewhere around that mark, that you would pay them as an unqualified teacher. So you would be paying them that salary to be on the program. So there is a cost to your school. However, for secondary, the vast majority of the subjects carry with them employer grants. And these employer grants replace what would be the bursary a trainee would get. Rather than them getting a bursary, they get a salary. And rather than that bursary going to that individual, it actually goes to the school as an employer grant. So you take on a chemistry teacher, you would receive £28,000 as a school to cover that trainee's salary. So for a secondary school, you're effectively getting that person's salary covered for you. So you're essentially getting an extra member of staff for no cost whatsoever. which is a wonderful thing for secondary. Unfortunately, those employer grants do not currently exist for primary, so you would still have to fund that that person's salary to accept them into the school. But like I say, there's lots of people out there applying for the apprenticeship route into teaching, and lots of great people. Our experience so far has been that the apprentices on program are of a higher caliber. As a financially viable route into teaching, we're finding more people who are maybe potentially a bit older, a bit more experienced, have mortgages to pay, and for them it's the route in. So there's a higher caliber coming through that apprenticeship route as well. So yes, you're forking out for them, but these teachers can be in your classroom and teaching from day one, and that's anywhere between a 50% as a supernumerary, so working alongside a classroom teacher if you're completely new to this, or with many of them, especially on the apprenticeship route, many of them are going in with some experience and confidence already, and are able to teach 80% timetable from the get-go. So it's all kind of down to the individual trainee, but for you guys, you would be paying that teacher on the unqualified teacher pay scale. So yeah, like I say, you're accessing a greatly expanded pool of prospective teachers for them as well. And the teacher training program, that teacher apprenticeship, is all but identical to the pathway of a traditional fee-funded route. So they are in your class, in your school 4 days a week, and 1 day a week they are out doing their training. That's either in person or online, and Vanessa will walk you through some of that in a bit more detail shortly. The other advantage of taking on an apprentice teacher is that you're able to then shape that individual trainee to the needs of your school, make them your own, develop them throughout their journey, and you're far more likely, therefore, to retain them as a member of staff within your school. The other wonderful thing, and it's not highlighted by our example head teacher here, Kay, but the other wonderful thing about apprenticeships is it is a great opportunity if you have existing workforce that you're looking to upskill within your organization. So say you have a TA, a HLTA, a lab technician, whoever, who happens to have a degree. You have to have a degree at the moment for this. It is a postgraduate apprenticeship. If they've got that degree, then by doing the teacher apprenticeship, it means that they aren't having to take a break in employment. They can stay employed within your school and train with you. So you're able to develop them and grow them through the program. And yes, you'll lose a TA, but you gain a teacher, and we can always backfill your TA with the TA level 3 apprenticeship that we offer as well. So it's a really lovely offer that for schools. So I'm just going to walk you through kind of the process for what you need to do to be able to register or access new teachers in this way. So if you're upskilling an existing member of staff, then the process is really rather simple. So you'd start off by identifying who those aspirant teachers are across your teacher workforce. They would simply come on and apply directly on our website. So it's a very simple application process compared to some of the other routes. You come in, you'd apply to us directly, and then we'll get in touch and we will arrange everything between the school and the individual. We will do an ITT readiness interview. That's a necessary thing. So we will undertake that interview. We'll do all the eligibility checks for those trainees, and we'll talk eligibility in a moment. But we'll do all of that, and then we'll support you as a trainee and you as a school to be able to access the funding and support that trainee to begin their teaching career, really. And then if you're using the tool to fill a vacant post and you're looking to recruit a new teacher, then there's a couple of ways you can do this. So you tell us who you're after as the get-go, work out what you want, where your shortages are, what those vacancies are. We have a big pool of people that have applied to us to complete the apprenticeship routes into teaching. Or we've already got hundreds of them sat there. Those people have been screened by us. We've done the eligibility checks for them, and they've all gone through an ITT readiness interview as well, so that they are good to go. What we'll do is we'll then match those trainees that we do have to the vacancy that you've told us about, and we'll share with you the profiles and information about who those trainees are, so that you can then review those, and you can then choose to conduct a local interview at your school from anyone you like the look of. And then likewise, if you're keen to move forward with them, we'll support you to access that funding, and we'll enroll that trainee on program with you. So we can introduce you to a whole load of people looking for employment opportunities that already exist. And to support that process, we've actually developed a really nice new tool that's completely free. It's our way of trying to get our apprentice teachers that are sat there looking for employment in front of schools. It's called the Teacher Directory. And if you visit bestpracticenet.co.uk/teacher directory, there you'll land on this kind of screen grab here. You'll see the landing page. You can type in the details of your school, tell us what you're after. I'm primary, I'm looking for someone 3 to 7 age range. Hit go, and then you will see a list of all of the apprentice teachers we have in your area, filtered by, I think it's filtered down by kind of location to you, so the nearest to you. And you'll see everyone who's willing to come across and interview for your school, and they'll be available to you. If you like the look at them, you can click go and it'll get in touch with us, and we'll set up for you a local interview so you can see that trainee teacher for yourselves. If there isn't anyone in your area, then you can register your details, and we'll actually notify you the moment someone's added, and we're constantly adding new apprentice teachers. The moment someone's added, you'll get notified, and you'll get that notification, and then you'll be able to go in there and see those people and invite them to interview. You can also use this service to register a vacancy that you have. So if you see the opportunity that exists to have a secondary apprentice teacher on board, then let us know. You can go in here, tell us we're looking for a chemistry person, we're looking for an extra person in our maths department, and we'll go out there and advertise those vacancies for you, and we'll go actively hunt for someone to fill that post for you as well. So it's a really useful tool. It's a brand new tool. We do recommend you go and check that out, because hopefully that will be a really valuable kind of source of new staff for you within your school setting. Right, at this point, I'm going to hand over, because I've been talking endlessly. I'm going to hand over to the lovely Vanessa, who is going to walk you through the pathways and then the program model itself. Vanessa.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so yeah, in a little bit more detail, these are the current pathways that we have at the moment, or that are starting from September 24. So we've got primary, and that is split into the 3 to 7 and the 5 to 11 age groups. So trainees who are on those programs, so the age range is specifically the age of the pupils that they will be working with across that pathway. Then we've got our primary SEND that is starting from this September. So really excited about that. And in terms of the primary SEND program, that means trainees will be immersed in SEND schools right from the off start. So that's the difference, obviously, between that program and our mainstream primary program. All the trainees across primary and across secondary will engage in a placement as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit more detail when we get to the program overview on the next slide. In terms of secondary, you can see the 9 subjects that we will be offering from this September. So that is our sort of current offering in terms of secondary. Again, secondary trainees, they will also have a placement. So in terms of the age ranges that they will be covering across that secondary age phase. You can also see that alongside our postgraduate apprenticeship, we do also have our fee-funded routes as well. And the programs are very similar in terms of what they are engaging with and what they're learning in terms of that training program. You can see there on the right-hand side, we've got our entry requirements. So in terms of that eligibility, that will be what we will be checking in terms of the ITT criteria. So as Chris said earlier, a bachelor degree, so 2.2 or above. GCSEs, so that's English, Maths and Science for ITT, Science for primary. We also will recognise equivalencies as well. So if trainees are in need of equivalencies, that can also be something that can be discussed as well. And you can see there as well around being a resident of the UK for the past 3 years. So that's the criteria in terms of ITT. Thanks, Chris. There it is. Thought it wasn't coming. Okay, so it's all right. So here's the program overview. So this is specifically for apprentices. So the difference between the fee-funded and the apprenticeship structure is that the fee-funded will finish at the end of term 3. The apprentices, they have a 12-month program, and then after that 12 months, that's when they go through what we call endpoint assessment. So in effect, it's like 4 terms. So they start with a first day of learning. So that is the back end of August. So all our trainees will have that induction. So that's where we introduce the systems that we use. So we've got 2 different systems that we use for assessment, for where all our materials sit. And then introducing them as well to some of our what we call our study packs and our online material. So you can see there the terms are broken down into where they are at that point. So term 1, starting right from the offset in their school, so immersed, and our fee funded are as well, immersed in that school experience right from the offset. All trainees spend Monday to Thursday in school, like Chris said earlier, depending on their experience, because we do have a range of experience across all our trainees, fee funded and apprentices. Depending on their experience, that will be the amount of teaching that they will start off with. So that we can have discussions around the prior experience that trainees have had, and then we can set that percentage of teaching in that discussion alongside yourselves. So Monday to Thursday in that school setting, really building up their experience of teaching across the age phase, or if they're in SEND, it's very much around the curriculum stage that they're delivering. So we don't specifically look at the ages in SEND, it's more around the curriculum development and ensuring that our trainees have that curriculum development expertise across the programme. Friday is study day, or what we call off-the-job learning. So on that day, there is no requirement for them to be in school. They will be engaging with online study or subject or curriculum webinars and what we call our professional development programme, which is our core training. You can see there that in term 2, so from January, all our trainees are involved in, well, they go to a contrasting placement. So if our trainees are on a SEND pathway, that means that they will need to go to a mainstream for the 6-week placement. Likewise, if we have trainees who are on a mainstream placement, there is an opportunity, if they do have an interest in SEND, to actually go on a placement for 6 weeks in a SEND school. Likewise, secondary also have that 6-week placement as well to get that breadth of experience across the age phases. So our fee funded also follow that model, and then everyone then will return back then to their host school. So then moving then through into term 3, that's when the summative assessment takes place. So that's where trainees will be assessed. So all the evidence will be looked at, very sort of similar to traditional routes where trainees collate information and evidence, and that all sits on one of our assessment platforms. And then that recommendation for qualified teacher status takes place in that term. We then move to what we call a professional development module. And this is very much for our apprentices to show that they're still in learning all the way through right to the end of the academic term. They still need to evidence that they are learning across the summer term because it is a 12-month programme, and then into early term 4. So early term 4 is when the endpoint assessment currently sits. And what they will do there is evidence everything that they have done from the point of qualified teacher status and then through module 6 into that endpoint assessment, where they have a series of activities that they need to do to demonstrate that not only have they got qualified teacher status, but they have then completed their apprenticeship. And they can actually have either get a pass or actually distinction and recognition of that apprenticeship that they've engaged in. So you can just see just sort of below all the different elements. I have sort of referred to those earlier around the different study materials that the trainees will be involved in. I think probably some key pointers are that yes, you might have a really experienced upskill or an experienced apprentice that's new to your school but has done lots of TA work prior to joining you. Just to be mindful that all trainees should be based in one class, because they need, as part of the training programme, to build up that development of being the class teacher with a group of pupils. There is room for interventions within the age phase or curriculum phase that they are working within, so that's absolutely fine. But what we don't want is a scenario where trainees are being used as a covered supervisor. It is very much a class teacher role. Likewise, if you do have an apprentice that is teaching quite a large percentage right from the offset, you just need to be mindful that there are particular weeks, so there are 4 set weeks across the programme, where they have what we call intensive training and practice. And that is a new element for all teacher training providers. And so all trainees must be involved in that. And that's where we look at a granular aspect of the training curriculum in more detail. So for example, in that week, they will engage in a webinar with people tutors on the programme, engage in theory, related to the particular practice that they're going to be looking at. They then look at in-depth practice from an expert practitioner. And so that evaluation comes in and analysis comes in. Then they have in-school practice. So within that time, they can be doing things within the classroom setting, but they will just need flexibility to be joining and looking at a particular element of practice. So there are 4 specific weeks of those across the programme. Every other week will be a Monday to Thursday doing their in-classroom experience. In terms of PPA, so they're obviously entitled to PPA, and that would come in the Monday to Thursday. It would not eat into the Friday study time. We also have what we call enhancements. So we will put on enhancements which are after school, so a bit like twilights. And that's very much around local, regional or national priorities. And there is also that element of independent learning as well for the trainees. In terms of support, so all our trainees are well supported across the programme. They have that personalised support with an apprenticeship tutor or personal tutor. They will have an in-school mentor. So in school, there needs to be somebody assigned as that in-school mentor who must do our 20 hours of training. And then the follow-up with that would be sort of 6 hours top up if they were then to continue in that role. And that involves meeting with the trainee on a weekly basis. They would be following our trainee mentor session guides that link with our curriculum so that you can really see what the curriculum is like that the trainees are following. The personal tutor will come out and do some joint observations as well, because part of that mentor role is to observe the trainee on that sort of on a regular cycle. So lots of support there in terms of in-school and tutor support. So very much triangulated in terms of the support for the trainee. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Wonderful. So just kind of to capture everything, there's headline benefits again for you of the teacher apprenticeship. So from the perspective of a trainee teacher, someone looking to enter the teaching profession, going down the apprenticeship route for you would mean that you will get salaried employment on the unqualified teacher pay scale, and your training fees, that £9,500 that you'd normally fork out for an ITT program, would actually be funded by the school's apprenticeship levy. So you will receive a salary and not have to put yourself into financial debt in order to complete your qualified teacher status. From a school's perspective, those in secondary, and I've got the grant values there in that box on the right hand side, but those in secondary employing an apprentice teacher will receive an employer grant to cover the apprentice's salary while they're on program. That's paid monthly, goes direct to the school. You will have the opportunity obviously to fill an otherwise vacant post that might exist within your school, and you're accessing a much wider pool of prospective teachers through the apprenticeship route as well. You're gaining someone, as Vanessa said, who's in your classroom and teaching 4 days a week. And the apprenticeship also offers you the opportunity to upskill an existing member of your support staff that you might have, so helping you to develop and grow your own workforce. From this September, there is a new mentor grant available for schools as well. So if you take on a trainee teacher, whether they're an apprentice or doing the fee-funded route, then you'll also be eligible for a mentor grant. It's roughly £1,000. It all depends on London weighting and things like that. But it's about £1,000 per teacher that you'd receive to support with your mentor training costs as well. So yeah, there are the key benefits. So what are the next steps involved for you? So kind of the big call to action is go and register for the teacher directory. So that's bestpracticenet.co.uk/teacher-directory. Here you can find trainee teachers that we have in your area who are seeking that employment within your school. And it's an opportunity for you to open up a vacancy that you might have to any potential apprentice teacher applications as well. If you've got someone within your existing school that's looking to take that next step with their career and move on to teaching, then that apprenticeship route is a really good option for them. And in that instance, we urge you to contact teach@bestpracticenet.co.uk, and one of our team will be able to support you with helping get that individual signed up, registered and on program ready for September. If you've got a group of schools, you're part of a multi-academy trust or a bigger setting, you have a number of trainees potentially within your own organisation, but also more widely that you could bring in, then there is an opportunity for you to host and deliver the groups locally for your locally out of your own school sites, which will enable you to better contextualize that program of study for your trust as well. So there's an opportunity there. If that's something that applies to you, then you can contact partnerships at Best Practice Net, and Beth or myself will be in touch to walk you through the next steps there. So yeah, the other thing we haven't mentioned there is this is the postgraduate teacher apprenticeship. There is set to be an undergraduate route into teaching. There is a trailblazer group that we sit on at the moment to try and get that into action. It's I think the DFE are aiming to have something live from September 2025. That may be a bit ambitious, but there is going to be an undergraduate route coming, and it will be something that we do offer. But in the meantime, the postgraduate route is the kind of the only option available to you at the moment from that apprenticeship pathway. So yeah, just keep an eye out. It's not there yet, but it will be coming, and we will be offering it when it does arrive. So there concludes the kind of the presented part of this